An open letter to Dr. Archibald Myers. Dear Doctor, I'm writing to express my gratitude for the attention and care you have spent upon me of late. It was a comfort in trouble, finding a physician my own age, not to mention one as knowledgeable and as skilled as you are. But I won't be coming in tomorrow. I won't be coming home at all. You'll want an explanation, I expect. Every time I look in the mirror, I'm older than I have ever been. And every day I live, there are fewer people older than me left alive upon this earth. The same applies to everyone, but the stark truth of it struck home to me when Alan died last week. We graduated high school together in 1937. Just like me, Alan stayed local his whole life, minus the war. I knew him well enough to observe that he never came to accept the fact that he'd grown old. And like you, Dr. Mayer, he never retired. Also, he didn't believe in using elevators. He wanted to stay fit. Down his own stairs he tumbled, tripped over his own feet by all accounts, breaking his neck somewhere on his way between the second and first floor. Brittle bones, such a tragedy. I attended the funeral. I remained anonymous, and no one approached me. I heard a man say, 80 years, and he never needed another soul to care for him. Did it his own way until the end. It was a good run. That was Michael, a grandchild, I believe. Alan had 7 of them. I do like to keep track of my old friends. Not that Alan and I always got along. Once upon a time, we competed for the love of a girl. Sarah Grace Henderson was the sweetest little thing you ever did see. I don't think Ellen ever knew that she favored him over me. She died that very year. Some kind of freak electrical accident while setting up lights for the Castle Under the Clouds Dance of 35. She was my first funeral. I was 15 years old. Alan cried like a baby all through it. I'll never forget. As for me, I didn't cry. But I lingered near her grave long after the others had gone, even her family. I watched the ancient groundskeeper, Mr. Glebe, lower the coffin. Let's do a little break because there's a lot of new people here. We shared a look, and in that moment seemed also to share an unspoken understanding. He smiled and winked at me, shoveling dirt. When it's dark, he said, you can still hear 'em. The bad ones, I mean. The crooks and the hooligans and the hussies. You press your ear to the ground, boy, and you listen real close. And you can hear them call up to you from hell. You can hear them scream in the fire. I was 15 back then, and like most kids of that age, I knew every goddamn thing there was to know. And so I was sure that was just Mr. Glebe's way of telling me to fuck off and go home, which I did. But later that night, don't you know, I sneaked back out of my house and returned to the cemetery. It was a compulsion, you might say, a true one, not to be confused with the way most people use that word. It was something that had to be done for no good reason. There wasn't a gate back then. I went right on in and no one was ever any the wiser. I lay flat on my belly in the dirt, 6 feet above the buried princess of my dreams. I pressed my right ear flat to the ground. I have excellent hearing, and even if by some act of divine intervention I live another generation or two, I can still hear what I heard that night, that first time. I can replay it with absolute clarity. My eardrums shake with memory. The war caught Alan and most of my other friends finishing college. The war caught Alan and most of my other friends finishing college. Not me, though. I'd taken on an apprenticeship to Mr. Glebe by then, and never gave college much thought. Still, we all had to go. Colin and Horace never came back, not even for burial. Poor old Pete came back in a wheelchair. In 1952, Mr. Glebe kicked it from an ordinary heart attack, and the maintenance of that old cemetery passed on to me. As for Alan, he went on to much greater success in real estate and the stock market. I'm sure he forgot all about me, but I doubt that he ever wholly forgot about Sarah Grace, not even after he married Dorothy and set forth doing his bit to repopulate a war-ravaged world. Out of breath, my boy. Pete hanged himself in 1958. There were plenty of folks who wondered how he managed it, wheelchair-bound as he was. I didn't fret over such things. I buried him, remembering how I was never good enough, never rich enough to run with his crowd back when he was whole and happy. He was a serious baseball prospect back in his prime. Might have made the big leagues if it hadn't been for the war. You can't hear just anyone screaming from 6 feet under, you know. It was just as my old boss had told me. But I could hear Pete, calling out not only in agony but in sadness, in regret. I heard him, and I heard Mr. Glebe too, always and forever pissed off even in death. Ellen outlasted most of them. There's only a couple of us left. We had one thing in common, Ellen and I: keeping fit. I tended those grounds for 50 years, and for most of them, grave digging was part of the job. Management didn't lease out the earth movers until the 1980s. For decades, it was just me and my shovel. Oh, I was a strong man, Dr. Mayers. Though you may laugh to hear it, though you may choose not to believe me, I was a very strong man. Much stronger than you would have remembered me from school, if you remember me at all. It was only in my childhood and now, at the very end of my life, that I find myself so weak. You shouldn't have stayed away so long. You might have recalled me had you never left. You might have had the good fortune of turning me away, or at least being more careful. But I never forgot you. When you got the deferment and moved away to medical school, I promised myself I would remember you. When you stayed away, lo, these many years to raise your family and assert yourself in a world that would rather pretend that people like me don't exist, I remembered. I was the one you beat up for looking at your sister through the window. I wasn't hurting anyone, and you attacked me for no good reason. How could you have forgotten that? How can you have forgotten me? I can still hear them. All of them. Calling to me through the turned and disturbed earth. Their cries and lamentations are like whiskey for my soul. And since I acquired an actual stethoscope, just last week, thinking of you, I can hear even more. Intermingled in that heady chorus of torment and misery, I can sometimes hear the scorching fire. Sometimes I can make out words. It's like they know I'm there. From Sarah, why did you do it? What did I ever do to you? From Alan, your turn is coming, murderer. From Pete, it was you, wasn't it? When we had the enemy right in front of us, you shot me in the back and ruined me forever. You did it, you fucking asshole. I know you did it. You'll think me insane. You'll call it madness. Dismiss it from your mind if you can. When you can't. Something that feels like rational thought will insist that these people don't deserve hell. What did they do that was so bad? You'll try to put it all on me, on my flawed and damaged perception of things. This might even make you feel better for a time. Or it would. But by now, Archie, I expect you're starting to feel rather ill. By now, in fact, I'm sure you are. You didn't remember me. I was an easy boy to forget. You'd have been far more likely to remember Ellen and Pete. But Sarah, too. They were all more popular than me, more memorable. And the days we shared in school together are now more than 60 years in the past. But did you remember? After all, was it the benevolence of age that impressed upon you the need to look past old grievances and help out a poor, sorry sap like me in his sickness and difficulties? If so, you may be the better man. We'll see. I'll know when I've laid myself down one last time under the half-light of the stars and listened to the ground over your corpse. I still have the key to the gate. I go there all the time. You're a good doctor. You'll have friends who are good doctors. Have they diagnosed you already? Have they found the poison? Have they told you, Archie? By the time you first felt it, it was already too late. I did my homework, made sure of myself. It's in your bloodstream. You'll be in the ground by this Saturday. Oh, but don't worry. I'll follow you down the dark and eternal road soon enough. I'm tired of chemotherapy. Tired of this weakness creeping over my bones. I don't think I have long. I'm ready to die. First, though, I intend to pay you my last respects. And to listen to you all night long.